I have picked 3 players. Nathan has picked 3 players that we are all in on for fantasy football in 2025. Guys that for one reason or another we have been convicted are going to perform this year finally. And I have some pretty risky picks here. Nate's picks are a little bit. Yeah, honestly, you have risky picks as well. So again, we got to make the case to why you should draft these guys. But these are guys that we actually think are going to perform this year. The first one is Chris Olave. And the main reason I like Chris Olave is, of course, because of his price. Chris Olave, you're getting him in a range of wide receivers when you're looking at the other wide receivers going around him. Zay Flowers, he has the upside of like a low-end wide receiver 2 usually. Jordan Addison, kind of the same thing. I think he got, low-end wide receiver 2. That's pretty much what we know what Flowers and Addison are. Jameson Williams, the same thing. Xavier Worthy, he could have higher upside, but he's probably going to be a wide receiver 2, right? Jalen Waddle, who even knows if he has wide receiver 2 upside at this point? Travis Hunter, he has the unlimited upside, but he might play defense. Jerry Jeudy, he was a wide receiver 1 last year, which is insane to me. But again, completely different situation, and there's no Jameis to completely just run up his stats this year. Olave sits in a range where when you're talking about upside and upside, proven production, what he is capable of doing. And we know this because we saw it from Olave just 2 years ago when he was the wide receiver 16, which is a higher finish than any of Addison or Flowers has ever had. He had it in a year where 2023, everybody wants to point to the situation with Chris Olave this year and say, okay, this is a very, very bad situation from an offensive standpoint, from a quarterback standpoint, and you're not wrong. It's why Chris Olave is going in the 6th round. But the thing about Chris Olave in the 6 is I think he has more upside there, and he's going to be a flexible wide receiver at that point, your wide receiver 3 or 4, and that gives you a ton of upside for your team that could unlock the potential ceiling for your fantasy team this year. In 2023, I'm going to look at 2023 because 2024, obviously, of course, I know the big red flag with Olave is that he has concussions, and everybody thinks that he's going to be retiring next time he gets concussion. And we say this, honestly, I think the stupidest thing, when is the last time somebody got a concussion and retired? When is the last time that happened? It doesn't. People don't do that. Tua's not going to retire. Everybody said, oh, Tua's going to retire if he gets another concussion. And boom, he gets knocked out. And everybody's like, he's going to retire. And Tua's like, I'm not retiring. If you were playing football and you were getting paid tens of millions of dollars a year, would you retire if you got a little head injury? I know concussions are more than that, but I'm just saying, Chris Olave's not going to retire. He's not dead. And yeah, of course, I'm not a super big fan of him missing half the season, but it's not like he was doing that in 2023 and 2022 when he played 15 and 16 games. But let's look specifically at 2023 in the situation there. Because we act like Chris Olave, not in a good situation this year, was somehow in a good situation in 2023 when he ranked 47th in catchable target rate, 27th in target quality rating, all while being 3rd in unrealized air yards. The quarterback play that year was also not great. It wasn't probably as bad as it's going to be this year, but we don't know. I mean, we really don't know. It's kind of a wild card. If Rattler starts what he looks like, he'll probably suck. So they'll bring in Shuck. Does Shuck suck? Or is he a 26-year-old little guy that will come in and actually be pretty mature? We don't know. But what we do know is looking at 2023, Chris Olave has proven to us as fantasy players that he can perform in sucky situations. The other thing you have to consider with Chris Olave is when you're looking at the depth chart of that team, if we could have the depth chart of the entire Saints offense here on the screen. You know, they've got Kamara, and he's obviously going to soak up a lot of targets, right? He's the most efficient receiving back in the entire NFL. There's that. But we go down to receiver here. Rashid Shaheed, obviously coming off of an injury, right? That's not great. Brandon Cooks, Kevin Austin, Dante Pettis, Bub Means.
Come on,
Means?
Come on, man.
Who else is there?
Come on, man.
There's nobody else there. He got 100. The reason he performed like that in 2023 is because he had 138 targets. He only caught 87 of those. Again, catchable target rate was way down. And that's part of Olave's play style. The interesting thing about Olave is how he kind of gets his points versus his yards per target. His yards per target ends up floating around 8, 9. I would have expected it to be much higher than that with the type of player Olave is. And part of that is because I think Chris Olave has honestly been a little bit misused. And I think there's a decent chance that Chris Olave becomes misused again this year and doesn't end up hitting. But I'm willing to take that risk in the 6th round. Whereas last year you had to do it in the 3rd and 4th round, I will take it in the 6th round this year because, again, the guys he's going around, first of all, you're after the running back cliff. Second of all, the wide receivers there don't have a ton of upside. Chris Olave, if Chris Olave stays healthy, he can be a Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison at minimum. I definitely feel like he can. And I point to his talent level to wrap this up. When you're looking at his route running ability in terms of his success rates, even in the small sample size last year that we had for Chris Olave, 87th percentile success rate against man coverage, 81st percentile against zone coverage, 82nd percentile against press coverage. When websites like Reception Perception put together this data, what it tells us is, hey, context is one thing. Fantasy production is one thing. this is a darn good wide receiver. Chris Olave is a good wide receiver, guys. And he was drafted in the NFL, got respectable draft capital because he is a very good wide receiver. And situation can surely bring him down, but it's baked into his price this year. And because of that, and because of the upside that he adds to my team, and yes, of course, risk, he wouldn't be going in the 6th if his risk score wasn't high. He's got a high risk score. I understand that. But if I've got a pretty, risk-averse team through the first 5 rounds, Chris Olave in the 6th doesn't sound that bad to me. I'll take the shot. I'll hope for upside this year.
So I think a lot of people this year are kind of panicking, maybe not panicking, but they're worried about what Garrett Wilson's outlook could be in what is projected to be, honestly, another sucky offense with another sucky quarterback. And I'm not trying to fade Justin Fields that much, but as a passer, I am, because history has not shown us that Justin Fields is a good passer outside of his first read. And that's what I really want to talk on here mainly is 2022 to 2023, Garrett Wilson gets 147 and 168 targets respectively with Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle. And then in 2024, Aaron Rodgers helps him get 154 targets. And he finally finishes as a wide receiver 1. So he finishes as a wide receiver 10 in PPR formats. With over 1,100 yards. The biggest difference, honestly, the target volume didn't go up. It actually went down from 23 to 2024. His receptions went up a little bit, but his yards were about the same from what we're used to him getting. What went up actually was the touchdowns. They about doubled. He had 4 touchdowns in 2022, 3 touchdowns in 2023, 7 touchdowns in 2024. So that was a really, really good jump up for Garrett Wilson in his red zone usage. And that's something that's definitely worth noting heading into this season. Honestly, part of how Garrett Wilson will be able to maintain and sustain this production this year with Justin Fields is going to have to be some red zone usage again. Now, looking back at some of the best years with Justin Fields over in Chicago, really the best year, the only year where Justin Fields looked pretty solid in Chicago is when he was playing with DJ Moore in 2023. And if you remember in that season, a lot of people were low, including us, on Justin Fields, said that he was overrated, that he wasn't going to be that great. And he really, he wasn't that amazing. He wasn't ultra productive as everyone expected. But what he did do is he supported the pretty much only wide receiver threat in that room. Darnell Mooney was there, but DJ Moore was the main threat. He had 136 targets for 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. He finished as the wide receiver 6 in that room. Statement/claim number 1 for why Garrett Wilson, I think, is being a little bit undervalued this season because of the situation. Justin Fields is not a good quarterback, but he will help the wide receiver 1 in that offense produce. Being first read and run or first read and no one else is good for the first read and no one else in that offense. I am not advocating for literally anyone else in this offense in the passing game. And you look at that depth chart, and I don't think you'll be advocating for anyone in that offense either. I don't think it's a super hot take to say that Alan Lazard, Malachi Corley, Xavier Gibson, Jamal Pritchett, Josh Reynolds, Arian Smith, and Brandon Smith are going to be productive at all in this offense. This is the worst wide receiver depth chart I think I've seen
ever in the history of the NFL.
Yes. The depth of the Patriots wide receiver room is better than this. This is awful. Garrett Wilson will be the target or no one will. And that bodes really, really well for Garrett Wilson this season. It is all about the price, and when he's going mid to late 3rd round, I think it's honestly a pretty palatable price to take him when he's being drafted as a mid wide receiver 2. And I think his ceiling is honestly the same as it was last season. The reason being, looking at some of the efficiency metrics for Justin Fields versus Aaron Rodgers, you actually be surprised with this. Justin Fields, terrible quarterback, very, very inefficient in 2023 as a passer. 32nd in accuracy rating. His true completion percentage was 22nd. Deep ball completion percentage, this is interesting, was 13th. Pressure completion percentage, also interesting, 9th. What does that mean for Justin Fields? When he's under pressure, what generally happens when you're under pressure as a quarterback? For a guy like Justin Fields, you actually end up extending the play because you're a mobile QB. That means the entire play is out of structure. Everyone's just running impromptu routes at that point. Mm-hmm. Who's going to be the wide receiver that's open? Probably Garrett Wilson when he's looking downfield.
Think of another wide receiver on the Jets.
Justin Fields only throws to open wide receivers. Garrett Wilson will be the only wide receiver that's open in that offense. Completion percentage versus man and zone, 29th and 33rd. Passer rating versus man and zone, 15th and 34th. Accuracy rating versus man and zone, 33rd and 27th. When you go over to Rodgers, last season, Yes, he had a lot of volume. He was second in the league among quarterbacks with volume. That's why Adams and Garrett Wilson were able to produce. But from an efficiency perspective, he was awful. 36th in accuracy rating last season, 31st in true completion percentage, 10th in deep ball completion percentage, pressure completion percentage, 16th. Then you look at man versus zone. He was good against man. He was just as bad against zone as Justin Fields has been historically. So looking at this situation, honestly, I mean, from a volume perspective, I don't think anyone's out here saying that Justin Fields is going to match the volume that Aaron Rodgers had in 2024 for the New York Jets, which helped Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson produce, and Allen Lazard before Devontae Adams even came into that offense. Oh, by the way, there's no favorites being played in that offense anymore. Garrett Wilson is the best, and he will get the targets. Justin Fields is not going to say, Allen Lazard is my bestie, and I'm going to be throwing him the ball more than Garrett Wilson to begin the season. They will bench Justin Fields if he does not get the ball to Garrett Wilson. I'm just telling you right now, that's the case, and that's what's going to happen. So when you look at literally all the competition being wiped off the face of the planet for the Jets wide receiver room and Garrett Wilson specifically, and the fact that from an efficiency perspective, Justin Fields honestly really isn't any worse than than Aaron Rodgers was last season in getting the ball to the wide receiver one in that offense. I think you're looking at Garrett Wilson honestly having the potential to do the same as he did last year, being a low-end wide receiver one. I would put a lot of money on that.
So you're
honestly.
not worried about Malachi Corley? I'm
actually terrified. That's the one reason I thought about not putting him.
I think that's why people aren't drafting Garrett Wilson, because of Malachi Corley.
Yeah,
he's due for a big year.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about Laporta. Laporta is interesting because here's the thing: it was a tale of two halves last year for Laporta. If Laporta statistically, and when you're looking at his overall efficiency metrics, they're not very good at all. In fact, they're bad. I mean, for the most part. Yards per out run, 17th in the NFL, right? Yards per reception, yards per target are good, but that's not necessarily efficiency. It's mostly just how they're using him. In terms of, target separations, things like that. It's just not very good. He just wasn't super efficient last year. For Laporta's standard, right? Laporta, we expect to see top 5 in most metrics, and he just wasn't. And when you're looking at him compared to the other top 2 tight ends that are going at the top of this year's drafts, when you're comparing those guys last year and you're looking at weeks 1 through 12, of course, the story was that Laporta was absolutely one of the worst picks in fantasy football. And it showed here. He was averaging 8.4 points per game. He was the tight end 19 on a points per game standpoint through the first 12 weeks of the season. Fact of the matter is, Laporta lost leagues last year because by the time he got to week 13 when he actually started producing, it was over.
You lost because
it was over. Yeah. And either you were in the playoffs despite him or you were out of playoffs because of him. Because most of the time you took Laporta last year, he was doing it in the second, third. And that sucks. And you look at Bowers in that time, 15.2 points per game. Trey McBride, 14.2 points per game. And so obviously not anywhere close to the other top tight ends last year until week 13. Now, at the end of the season, you saw something interesting here. I can't remember. Did Sam Laporta have an injury last year?
I don't think so.
I don't think he did. I think this was just really a schematic shift.
It was a schematic shift.
Where at the beginning of the year, you saw this. And it shows actually in this comparison graphic right here. In terms of targets, 23rd in the NFL in targets. Bowers and McBride first and second. Sam Laporta 23rd, obviously. When you go down now to looking at weeks 13 through 18, comparing all three of these tight ends, he goes from being 23rd in the NFL to 6th in the NFL. That's much better. Bowers was 4th. McBride was 2nd. When you're looking at their points per game, Bowers and Laporta through weeks 13 through 18, so that's the last, 30, 40, 50, 6 weeks of the season. That is, less than a point per game separated there. Obviously, McBride was the one that took a step up at the end of the year last year, which is why McBride's a decent pick this year. But Laporta in particular, at the end of last year, obviously he's the tight end 5 in that time, playing 95% of snaps, but you saw a ton of things improve for him. The receiving touchdowns almost doubled in that time span on a per game basis. Receiving yards went way up, 38.5 per game in the first 12 weeks of the season. In the last 6, 56 and 0.8, right? And so, he even had more routes, things like that. But, you actually compare him against Bowers and McBride, he's winning in a couple categories, snap percentages, whatever. Receiving touchdowns, though, he was winning at. End zone targets, he got the nod on, and then fantasy points per target. And so you talk about the efficiency for Laporta, and he actually got more efficient last year. When you're looking at his price this year, this is honestly why he's super appealing, because when I'm getting down to this 6th round, we talked about the 6th round kind of and how it's a dumpster fire at multiple positions in multiple videos this week now. And so hopefully you kind of get the idea. I don't really like a ton of guys there. Laporta is sliding down to the end of the 6th, beginning of the 7th round. If Laporta's in the 7th, I'm going to select him. And here's why. Obviously I want to wait on my tight end. But 7th round, I can get 3 running backs and 3 wide receivers, or 4 wide receivers and 2 running backs, and still take Laporta. Oh, I'm doing that. I absolutely will put Laporta at my tight end position for that, because by that time, Bowers, McBride, and Kittle, who are all going in the top 3 rounds, are gone, and then there is no tight end drafted typically in rounds 4, 5, and if Laporta goes in 6, he's usually the next guy off the board. There's a ginormous zone this year in drafts, like 36 picks, maybe more, where there's no tight end that goes off the board. And if you wait long enough, you might just get a really good value on Laporta. Because again, at the end of the 6th, early 7th, if you're looking at what he did at the end of last year, these tight end 5 numbers, when you're talking about 15 points per game, absolutely, from a replacement standpoint, you're talking about the tight ends that are going in the same round as him. Here's the big reason that you should take him over any of the guys that's going next to him. Hawkinson, Kelsey, Njoku, Warren. I guess this doesn't apply to all of them, but in terms of Njoku, in terms of Warren, he has a huge advantage because of the offensive situation he's in, right? We're talking about the Lions. PFF graded 2nd overall offense and 12th graded PFF passing offense, right? So he has a big advantage there. He's obviously going to have the offensive advantage. Kelsey, obviously, he's got the volume advantage over Kelsey now, I think. Hawkinson, I think he's more durable than Hawkinson is, first of all, but again, I would give him the offensive nod with Jared Goff over JJ McCarthy. And so, you start to get that tight end run again in the 6th, 7th. And if you're sitting at the front of the tight end run, you can get Laporta at a very good price this year. And so I'm going to say, you really have to decide for yourself. Is Laporta the guy we saw at the beginning of last year, where he was like completely different than his rookie season? Or is he the guy at the end of last year where he was basically doing what he did in his rookie season? And again, the rookie season was incredible, right? There's absolutely nothing I think Sam Laporta could have done better in his rookie season. He was the tight end 1 in his rookie season, had 120 targets. So when you're doing on a per game basis, let's just map this out. 17 games in his rookie season, and he had 120 targets. So that's 7 per game, right? At the end of last year, how close was he? 7.5 per game. He was literally weeks 13 through 18 when the Lions, by the way, they did have something to play for. It's not like they were just, done. I mean, week 18, technically, they had to buy, whatever. He was doing what he did in his rookie season, where he was the tight end 1. And I'm not saying he will be the tight end 1 because, again, his rookie season, what the real outlier there was his touchdowns. He had 10 touchdowns that year. He still had 7 last year, though. It was the targets and reception combination in his rookie year that was just absolutely lethal. But again, it all starts with targets. And he did it at the end of last year. And if you want to look at Laporta and say, I think he's going to do what he did at the end of last year, and I think that's the Laporta we're going to see, with a new offensive scheme we don't really know, but it could be that he throws Laporta the ball more. It could be he throws it to him less. I would think that he would favor his easier targets a little bit more in a new offensive situation. But if you think that Laporta is going to do the same thing he did at the end of last year and in his rookie year, so what he's done for 2/3 of his entire NFL career so far, he's a really good value at the 6, 7 turn.
So next guy that we're going to have is someone who's quite a bit further down ADP boards, but he is a very relevant pick that I think is honestly more relevant than a lot of people give him credit for. He's being very overlooked after having honestly one of the better seasons of his career and kind of resurrected his career since having a really, really tough stint in his rookie contract in Chicago with a terrible situation in terms of volume and all that stuff. If anyone went back and looked at the 2023 season, I think a lot of people were like, hey, Darnell Mooney was literally open like all the time and Fields just missed him. I mean, I was just talking about Fields in that situation with New York and Garrett Wilson and how no one outside of the first read is going to get a target. I'm exaggerating, of course, but like in general, he's not good at that. And Mooney honestly like suffered because of that once DJ Moore came into that offense. And then he goes to a situation in Atlanta where Kirk Cousins is nowhere near his prime anymore, coming off of that Achilles injury. But with the amount of volume that he offered in that offense in that situation, he was a pretty good dart throw to take last season in 2024 with the potential upside that he could offer and even schematically as kind of a deep threat to complement Drake London. Lo and behold, it definitely works out, honestly. And a lot of people who made the playoffs and went on deep runs were because of some of the consistent production that, or not consistent, but flex production that you could get any given week from Darnell Mooney throughout the regular season. I mean, when you're looking at his price right now, according to ADP, he's going in the 10th round in Sleeper, 11th round in ESPN, and 11th round on Yahoo. He scored 13 plus points. That's more. He scored more than 13 points in 8 of his 16 games last season that he played. So essentially, every single week for a 10th round pick this season, that is a guy that is consistently on your bench that during bye weeks, you have to plug him into your flex. And maybe during injuries, you have to put him in a couple of weeks at a time. That is a guy who 50% of the time will put up 15 points in your bench spot. 15 points. And now you're going to say, well, Kirk Cousins isn't playing. We have to see what Michael Penix is able to do this year. You are correct. That is true. Michael Penix is not necessarily a downgrade from Kirk Cousins in terms of what he's going to offer from a volume perspective or even talent-wise. If you remember last year, they benched Kirk Cousins. They benched him. And Drake London went bananas, and Darnell Mooney got banged up right at the end of the season. So from a volume perspective, I mean, Michael Penix last season was passing the ball like 30 plus times. After his first game, I think he threw it less than 30 because it was his first game playing at the NFL level. He threw it 27 times and then 35 and 38 times in week 17 and 18. Too small of a sample size? Sure. Yeah, totally understand that. The way that they operated that offense honestly did not change. It looked pretty much the same schematically, and it actually looked better and more efficient and better, especially in the red zone for guys like Drake London. Mooney, I think, as a second option there is perfect. He was just under, I think, 1,000 receiving yards last year. And I think he could get right around that range again this season. For a shot that you want to take in the 10th, 11th, even 9th round, someone like Darnell Mooney who's shown it in a situation that really, from a volume perspective, has not changed. They haven't added or subtracted anyone from that offense heading into this season. There's honestly not a more reliable option in that price range that you're going to count on being more productive and having bigger boom weeks than Darnell Mooney. I mean, he's going right now right next to Keon Coleman and Michael Pittman. Those are objectively worse offenses from a volume perspective. And schematically, like Keon Coleman, okay, you could make an argument for Keon Coleman. Obviously, Josh Allen's throwing him the ball. But is Keon Coleman actually going to show anything? Like, aside from the half-game flashes that he showed last year, is he ever going to command volume? I mean, look at the statistical differences between Darnell, Keon Coleman, and Michael Pittman. And again, Michael Pittman was injured last year. He was playing with a broken back. But now you bring Tyler Warren into that offense, which we haven't even talked about in this video, but we're going to. Michael Pittman honestly does not have the ceiling that he's ever had in the Colts offense over his first 5 years with that team heading into this season because of Warren and because of Downs. If you want to take an upside shot, which is how you win games and how you can sustain a successful fantasy team despite bye weeks and injuries throughout the season, Darnell Mooney is the pick that you're going to want to go with. When you're looking at his schematic fit in that offense, honestly, he plays kind of the same role that Jameson Williams does. And then I actually pulled up the metrics. And yeah, Jameson Williams was better. He had 2 more points per game. He was wide receiver 26 in total finish last year after missing a couple games. Darnell missing one as well. He was better there. But in terms of target volume, Darnell Mooney had more on a per game basis. He had a better target share, and he had more receptions per game. Now, the receiving yards, Jameson Williams only had like 4 more receiving yards. He had more receiving touchdowns per game, and he had a little more yards per target. The yards per route run were slightly better as well. But again, it's pretty much a mixed bag between these two guys. When you're looking at the cost versus benefit of selecting these guys, Darnell Mooney honestly is a lot lower risk. I mean, when you're talking about a very high, not high risk situation, but high risk in terms of like, where's that volume actually going to go in that offense? Jameson Williams obviously getting a lot of training camp hype. He could be really, really good and really dominant this year, finish as a wide receiver 2 again. But his price right now is in the 6th round. You have to pay a hefty price to go invest in Jameson Williams and redraft this year. And with the running back drop off that we're going to be talking about in fantasy this season, the 6th round is where that drop off is about to happen at running back, where you want to start clearing out running back before the heavy drop-off is in the 7th round, and there's still viable wide receiver options there. And you're sacrificing running back in the 6th and selecting a guy like Jameson Williams. Go get a flex guy like Darnell Mooney, who schematically does the same thing. His upside is pretty much the same. Jameson Williams last year, 8 of the 15 games he played, 13 plus points. And yeah, J-Mo's going to have a higher ceiling, I think, when he does have those boom games. But Darnell Mooney is definitely a nice replacement option if you pass up on someone like J-Mo 5 rounds ahead of him.
I mean, who knows? He could have 5 big boom games.
Yeah, he could.
You know.
Yep.
Okay. That was dumb. Caleb Johnson. Yep. Let's talk about him. I had to put a rookie on here because honestly, a lot of our favorite picks this year, there are some good rookie values this year with the running back landscape. But I like Caleb Johnson in this situation. You draft 2 running backs in the first 4 rounds like we told you to do, and then Caleb Johnson's your running back 3. It's beautiful. And here's the thing. There are people out there who legitimately think that Jaylen Warren is going to start for the Steelers. Okay, no. I shouldn't even say that because he's going to start for the Steelers probably. That he's going to be the more productive back. To that, I say, he will not be the more productive back. Caleb Johnson will be the more productive back, and by the end of the season, Caleb Johnson will be starting in Pittsburgh as well. Just want to read you a couple of the training camp blips we keep getting. Not all of them, but, you know, they're both getting first-team reps, but Jaylen Warren's getting the first one, which is, of course, especially in a Mike Tomlin situation there, to be expected. It's way to be expected. But everybody keeps noting, oh yeah, he's such a gifted zone runner. But his burst, his explosiveness. I mean, beat writers. This is from Nick Faribault, Alex Kozora. Butchering your guys' names, but you guys are awesome. Non-pad, no tackling, but you can definitely feel Caleb Johnson's burst through the hole on zone. That was nice. On zone runs. It's impressive. Jalen Warren's the starter, but Johnson's rotating in. He's getting a lot of reps, and that's more so what matters than first or second team. They're rotating in Johnson with the starters. Johnson will be the starter there. And even if he's not the starter at the beginning, he's got the breakaway run, explosive playability that Jalen Warren, when you're looking at him, 40th in breakaway runs last year. I don't think Jalen Warren, when we're looking at Jalen Warren, anything he's done in his first 3 years in the NFL. What has he done? He's averaged 5, 11, and 8 points per game. And yeah, he could average 10 points a game this year. But he did that while Najee Harris was having 1,000 rushing yards every season. The problem with Najee Harris, of course, was he was entirely inefficient for most of his career. Actually, pretty much all of it. 3.9, 3.8, 4.1, 4.0. That's the bottom level of efficiency for a starting back like that. Still 1,000 rushing yards in each season. And every year that Jalen Warren has still had 11, 10 points per game. 260, 250, 270, and 300 rushing attempts for Najee Harris in his first 4 years there. And here's the thing of it. Caleb Johnson is going to do more with those rushing attempts than Najee did. He just will, because I think Caleb Johnson, while Najee was a better prospect probably, I think Caleb Johnson right now will be a better NFL running back because of that explosive play ability, because of his burst, and because I think the Steelers offense could score a bunch of rushing touchdowns. I think we mentioned this earlier in the video when we were talking about Garrett Wilson, but Aaron Rodgers last year, there was lots of volume to go around, but his efficiency and some of his, advanced analytics in terms of his accuracy, not great. And honestly, camp has been a little bit rough for the Steelers so far in terms of Aaron Rodgers, DK, their connection, Aaron Rodgers as a whole, obviously threw a pick on the first play of camp. Everybody saw that. And I'm not going to overreact to that stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Steelers, who is their offensive coordinator again?
Arthur Smith.
That's right, Arthur Smith. I wonder if they might...
They'll run the ball.
Run the ball. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering. And so with the Steelers, again, obviously not the best offensive situation, and you're drafting a rookie here. And drafting a rookie is risky, and drafting an offensive situation that's not great is risky as well. But that is why he's going in the 6th round. Because all of this is factored into his price. And so... when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers running offense, it was right in the middle of the league last year, 16th in the league, and I think that grade goes up this year because of Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson was drafted in the 3rd round. It's good draft capital for a running back. I think he has plenty of tools to be explosive, especially second-level explosive at the NFL level, and I think you're going to start seeing that as early as the first couple weeks. And once the Steelers figure out that this guy is pretty darn good, he's got workhorse size. He does have workhorse speed as well. You talked about it. His 40 time wasn't great, but of all college backs last year, he actually had the highest speed on any run. And you saw this with big play after big play after big play at Iowa. It's how he just would break off these chunk runs, and his stats were incredible his last year at Iowa. I think you're going to see that translate to the Steelers offense here. They drafted him for a reason. They did like him during the draft a lot, obviously, or they wouldn't have taken him. But he's a good fit there. I think they know how to utilize him. They're already seeing flashes in training camp, and once we get into the season, I think you're going to see Caleb Johnson ball out this year, and he's going to be somebody you're drafting to be in your flex spot. We're talking about high upside flex spot. How about a running back with big playability that is getting a ton of volume? That's the best flex spot I think you can ask for, in my opinion. Caleb Johnson, he'll ball out this year, and you'll see why I'm hyped about him.
I swear the more I talk about this guy, the more I'm just digging myself into a hole I won't be able to return from when I'm wrong, but I feel like I have a pretty good reason for why I'm so in on Tyler Warren this year. Again, we were talking about how much we like rookie values this season, and I will just say part of the reason that I like Tyler Warren this season is because he is so low risk at what price you're taking him. We always talk about diversifying your portfolio in fantasy drafts. Don't take too many shots on rookies in the top 8 rounds, because who are those guys in the top 8 rounds that you're drafting? They're starters. They're guys that you're assuming you will plug into your starting lineup every single week, barring bye weeks and barring injury. If you have a perfect season, they'll all be in your starting lineup, right? Once you get to 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th rounds, these are guys that you're potentially flexing, but they are starting probably at least on your bench. Now, when you're looking at the tight end position specifically, it is a little bit unique, because if you're taking a shot on Tyler Warren in the 10th round, which is what his price is right now on ESPN or on Sleeper, and then ESPN and Yahoo, he's going in the 11th. This is where you're potentially looking at that being like the first tight end that you take off of your board. This is when you fade tight end, you don't select an elite one, and you go and you take Tyler Warren in the 10th. Here's why Tyler Warren is such a good shot to take this season. Tyler Warren does not need to be the tight end 1 overall like Brock Bowers was last season to still be a successful league-winning pick at price. If he finishes as a top 6 to 7 tight end, that's a win at 10th round price tag, or with a 10th round price tag. You're looking at some of the other tight ends in that range. I think Njoku's going in that range, which if you want to take him, totally understandable. I get that. Mark Andrews is going pretty close to that range. Mark Andrews had some of the lowest target volume that he's ever had in his entire career last season. He only had 69 targets, which is nice. But it's actually not. That's not sustainable. He will have to have the same amount of touchdown production this year to actually maintain what he did in 2024. Daniel Jones, in our eyes, is going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts. But honestly, in our opinion, it doesn't really matter that much because either quarterback sucks. I would prefer Daniel Jones. And ultimately, if AR does start this season, he's not going to last long. Let's be honest, guys. If AR starts this season, he'll either suck, get injured, or he'll do both at the same time. I would lean both at the same time. Anthony Richardson will not be starting for long if he does start week 1. Bad quarterbacks need easy targets with good hands. And that honestly is one of the biggest points for why Tyler Warren is going to be so valuable to this offense and so valuable to Shane Steichen and how he likes to operate this offense. If you watch the Colts and it's ugly, their offense is ugly, but if you watch them and what they like to do in the passing game, part of the reason that Josh Downs has been so successful and Michael Pittman over the last couple of years has been successful when he's healthy is that those short to intermediate targets are pretty consistent, and Steichen likes to maximize their after catch ability. What he also likes to do is get the ball to his tight ends. In fact, he's so desperate to get the ball to his tight ends that he threw the ball 75 times combined last season to Kylan Granson, Mo Alley Cox, Drew Ogletree, and Will Mallory. If you're not a Colts fan, you don't know who those people are, and you shouldn't know who they are. But that's 75 targets. That is legitimate target volume being allocated to the most lackluster, non-talented tight ends I've ever seen in my life. And Tyler Warren is now heading into this situation where Shane Steichen can't help but get tight ends implemented into this offense and can't help but want to get the ball to his most talented assets in that offense as well. And look, Shane Steichen has a lot of faults, but as a play caller, he will get the ball to his most athletically gifted playmakers. And you saw that with Josh Downs last year as a true route runner. He's the best route runner on the team. And then obviously Jonathan Taylor and him liking to run the ball with Anthony Richardson as well. When you're looking at some of these reports coming out of training camp, you've got veteran guys in there like Cam Bynum, who they just signed on the defensive side of the ball. He's I think he's DB or a safety. He was talking about Tyler Warren and how he honestly has just been operating like a veteran. He couldn't even tell that he's being drafted. When you're looking at the way that Warren's being utilized in that offense, he's getting targets over the middle of the field out the butt, and he's beating linebackers and safeties to the second level already as a rookie. He's getting every single first team rep, every single first team of opportunity. He is pretty much the only tight end in this class. Maybe Colson Levin should be the tight end 1 in Chicago as well. But Warren is pretty much that guy, that rookie tight end this year that's going to be getting all the opportunity at the tight end position right out the gate. He's going to be starting. When you're looking at their 11-on-11 drills, he was the leading target this past Thursday. With Anthony Richardson playing on the first team. Tyler Warren led the team in targets. He had like 3 in the 11-on-11 drills as well. So, I mean, it's no secret, guys, how they want to utilize him in this offense from a skill set perspective, and that is all over the field, because that's what Tyler Warren does. He runs the ball, he catches the ball, he runs in the slot, he runs out of the backfield, he runs on the outside. Oh, and by the way, apparently he can play quarterback for a play or two as well and throw some touchdowns. So I honestly wouldn't be sleeping on Tyler Warren at price. If he would be going higher, I'd be like, I don't know, because the situation is shaky, and I could eat my words and I could be wrong about this. I don't think I will, and if I do, am I really going to be losing the league because I missed out on a shot taking Tyler Warren in the 11th round of my fantasy draft? Probably not, which is why I'm all in on him this year.
And so those are guys that Nathan and I both, for some reason or another, really like. We ended up being long-winded, but again, we have conviction. These are players we like this year, and so whether or not you draft them is totally up to you, but if you would do us a huge favor, drop a like on the video and make sure if you play fantasy football that you're subscribed, because we're going to come out with tons of videos like this leading up to your fantasy drafts so that we can help you win your fantasy football leagues this year. We really appreciate you guys doing those 2 things. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.